At 10, the UK could face up to 6 months of restrictions, says a top medical official, to help control the spread of coronavirus. Deserted roads and empty parks. After a week of strict social distancing, England's Deputy Chief Medical Officer says we could be in for the long haul.
Over time, probably over the next 6 months, we will have a 3-week review. We will see where we're going. We need to keep that lid on, and then gradually we will be able to hopefully adjust some of the social distancing measures.
The UK death toll from coronavirus has now exceeded 1,200, among them an ear, nose and throat surgeon at a hospital in Burton. Also tonight.
These are our masks that we're desperate for and hoping for a supply very soon.
The care workers who say they're vulnerable because face masks, gloves and hand sanitisers are being diverted to the NHS. In the US, a prediction from the leading government expert that coronavirus could kill up to 200,000 Americans. The food banks in Northern Ireland providing home delivery to those who are self-isolating. And the oldest man in the world and the UK's oldest woman both celebrate their 112th birthdays. Good evening. As the country enters its second week of stringent restrictions to try to stop the spread of coronavirus, there was a warning today that it could take up to 6 months before life in the UK returns to normal. Senior Medical Officer Jenny Harris said this didn't mean months of complete lockdown, but that people would have to be responsible and reduce social distancing measures gradually. The government has now confirmed that more than 200 people have died since yesterday. The vast majority of deaths are in England, with over 1,000 fatalities, followed by 48 in Wales, 41 in Scotland, and a total of 21 deaths in Northern Ireland. Our science editor David Shookman has the latest. The head of Italy's coronavirus response team has told the BBC that there is now a severe shortage of medical staff in the north of the country, the area worst hit by the pandemic. Doctors and nurses from across Italy and around the world are being asked to volunteer to work there. There have now been almost 11,000 deaths from COVID-19 in Italy, with over 97,000 confirmed infections. Jean Mackenzie sent this report.
They've come from around the world to serve on the front line of this crisis. Doctors from Russia, Cuba and now Albania, and from every corner of Italy too.
I just finished from the hospital after 12 hours. I'm so tired.
Giuseppe's never worked in an emergency room. He only qualified last year, but he's left his home in Sicily for a field hospital at the epicentre.
Why did you decide to travel to work up here?
The emergency was here and it's still here, and so I'm here to get my contribution, my little contribution, and help my colleagues.
The force at which this virus struck the north of Italy has left it exposed. 300 doctors were flown in from different parts of the country last week, but this wasn't nearly enough. The situation in the north is so acute, so many doctors and nurses have fallen sick now that the government is appealing to people from all over the country to travel up there and help.
In Spain, the number of coronavirus fatalities rose by 838 overnight, marking the country's highest daily rise in deaths. Much of the country remains in lockdown. 6,500 people have now died from the virus there, and there are just under 80,000 confirmed infections. It's one of Europe's hardest hit countries, but Spanish health officials say the virus there could be near its peak. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has apologised to his country for the impact of a sweeping coronavirus lockdown. Tens of thousands of migrant labourers have been forced to return to their home villages following measures brought in at just 4 hours' notice. Mr Modi asked for forgiveness but said there was no other way to slow the spread of the virus. The US government's leading infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says at least 100,000 Americans will be killed by the virus and possibly up to twice that number. Some cities, including New York, have warned that they may soon run out of medical supplies. Well, our North America editor John Sopel is at the White House for us. John, that's a very sobering figure.
Yeah, I think this will be a very salutary warning from Dr. Fauci, much respected. It's the first time I've heard an official give an estimate of likely death toll of between 1 and 200,000. And just to give you an idea of the scale of what's unfolding in America, the first death was just over a month ago. It took a month, 2 days ago, for it to reach 1,000 deaths. That has doubled in 48 hours, and that is the scale at which the death toll is rising from this. Now, there was a slither of good news out of New York where the governor there gave a briefing and said that the rate at which people are being admitted into hospital is slowing slightly, but this is the epicenter of the outbreak and it is still a very serious situation there. Donald Trump has abandoned his plans for imposing a quarantine on New York, New Jersey and Connecticut and just said that he'll issue a tougher travel advisory. He's due to give a news conference in the next 15 minutes or so. It'll be very interesting to see whether he accepts Dr. Fauci's assessment of the number of fatalities that coronavirus could bring.